We have quite a mystery tonight, and the people who are joining me, a family from Long Island, is trying to solve it. It involves their father, who was an undercover detective for the Suffolk County Police. His name was Dennis Wustenhoff, and he was killed. I believe we have some photos of the detective. He used to wear a beard. He was undercover. He was car bombed 30 years ago, getting into his vehicle outside your house in North Patchogue. And apparently the car bomb was under the seat. You were at school, and it's still a mystery to this day. 30 years later, we are not certain who did it. There are theories out there. I know the family has strong suspicions. There's your dad with the three of you when you were kids. And as I mentioned, you were at school. That's when he started on the job in uniform for Suffolk County, and then he became an undercover officer working with the DEA on some operations. There was a photo there at one point. He was in Vietnam, and so he really served not only his local community, he served the nation, and killed 30 years ago. And now you want answers, and I want to introduce you. Melissa Wustenhoff, Kevin Wustenhoff, you're a Suffolk County police officer.
Yes.
Followed your dad into the department, and Jennifer Wustenhoff, and I know that you're also married. Your last name's, what's your last name?
Skelsey.
Skelsey, and your last name?
Lees.
Lees, okay. So I thank you for being here. Now, you started a Facebook page hoping people will come forward with information. First, I want to play the piece that aired on Pix 11 on February 15th, 1990, 30 years ago. The anchor people were Donna Hanover, Brad Holbrook. The reporter was Drew Scott, reporting from Long Island.
Good evening. He started his car and lost his life.
A Suffolk County drug agent is dead tonight, assassinated when his car exploded as he turned the ignition key. Our Long Island correspondent Drew Scott is standing by live with the latest. Drew?
41-year-old Suffolk police undercover narcotics officer Dennis Wustenhoff is dead after a powerful car bomb blast, and police are calling it a probable assassination. The cop's family wasn't at home at the time of the explosion. The detective's wife works as a teacher's aide at a nearby elementary school. The officer's children are teenagers and were at school. Neighbors call Wustenhoff a great family man. He served in Vietnam and was so experienced as an undercover narcotics officer, he trained other cops and did extensive work with the Federal Drug Enforcement Administration. That, Police Commissioner Daniel Guido says, may be the key to the killing.
Some primary theory is that it was job-connected, and that it was either done as an act of revenge, perhaps, or perhaps to frustrate a current investigation, of which he has a number ongoing.
Other undercover officers who work with Wustenhoff are being placed on alert tonight in case they too are at risk, and police have asked us not to show the dead officer's picture for fear it might jeopardize his partner's safety.
That was 30 years ago this past weekend, February 15th, 1990. Melissa, you started the Facebook page looking for answers. Back then, the speculation was it was an angry drug dealer. We have a camera on you because you started the Facebook page. Now we're hearing it might be something else, but that actually came out in the beginning too. What do you feel happened to your father?
We feel that, there's a lot of rumors going around that my father was having an affair, and that's kind of what we want to get out there, that that's not a rumor, that is in fact true. And he was having an affair with another cop's wife in a nearby department.
The other county,
yeah,
right?
the other county.
Nassau County.
Yeah, so we feel that that person is responsible for his death.
Now, apparently back then, a couple of days or a week after this happened, the officer in the other department, actually, there were search warrants executed, and apparently he was questioned upstate. Were you told that as well?
Yes, but our understanding is that he has a lawyer right as soon as he came back from where he was. So
He didn't talk.
Yeah, so from that point on, there was no, cooperation on that person's part.
Yeah. Now, I have photos of your family when you were kids, and I'd like Eliza to please show some of them. Your dad seemed like a very involved father, and he was married to your mother, Francine.
Yes.
When you hear the possible motive involved here, it must be upsetting because you know him another way too, right?
Right.
Kevin, would you like to talk about your dad?
Yeah, I mean, one action in his personal life doesn't define him as a person. We acknowledge the fact that he had some personal conflicts going on, but my mother and father had gotten past that and were working forward. Yeah, it's a troubling time, but it's not really something that we think about all the time. There's so many other things about my father that were positive, and his contributions as a father, as a husband, as a police officer, that we like to revel on more than those things.
Yeah, so how do you remember your dad, and how old were you when this happened?
So I was 12 years old, and
We have some pictures of the crime scene. You were at school when this happened.
thankfully, we were at school when this took place, and it really was obviously I would assume, a terrifying scene. Thankfully, we were not there. We were at school where we were supposed to be. It was just the way that I like to try to remember my dad is for the positive things that he did. As a father, he was very engaged, very present in the things that we were doing as kids, going to our chorus concerts, going to our plays, going to our cross-country meets and our basketball games, and making sure that, especially with my sisters, a lot of time, special time with them, listening to music or going to a dance. I'm sure Melissa will touch on a little bit. Just a very supportive figure in our lives round the clock, and not just with us, to our mother and to our neighbors in the community also.
Well, let me come back to Melissa, because I think I read that, was there a dance, a Valentine's dance that you went to with your dad?
Yes, the night before he died, which was February 14th, Valentine's Day, he took off of work to spend the evening with me at the father-daughter dance at my school. And I mentioned this on the page, but, he didn't get to dance with me at my wedding, but grateful that I had that last night with him where we did get to dance together. So that's a really important memory for me that I had that.
How hard is it for you to go public about this, though? Is it tough for you?
It's very difficult because you have so much, pain in there, and you try to put on a happy face all the time. We have children of our own now, but it's more important to get this out there because it is 30 years later, and he was our father and, a police officer for the community, and we just can't sit back anymore.
Do you remember how you were told what happened? How you got the news?
Yes, I remember exactly. We unfortunately didn't have to be told because we were at the hospital waiting, because my brother likes to, mention the fact that everybody thinks that this bomb went off and he died instantly. That's not what happened. The bomb went off and he lived for 3 more hours. So he knew that he was dying, which is not a great way to go, but
He had devastating injuries.
Right.
What was the impact of the bomb on him and on the car?
I mean, when you look at the pictures of the car, it doesn't look like it looks, it looks kind of intact, but I never saw his injuries, thank God, and I tried not to even visualize that. But I'm pretty sure. Maybe you can answer.
I can touch on that.
Yeah.
It obliterated his insides. You're talking about, without getting too much into specifics about that scene, it tore apart his insides in the blast. Every major organ was affected by whatever was in the explosive itself. It was also affected by the floorboard, the ricochet of anything that came off the road, the springs in the seat, the upholstery. That particular car had an electric motor for the seat, so parts of that motor went up inside of his body.
Was it put under the seat or in the undercarriage?
We don't know that.
You don't know?
We don't know.
And you were told it was sophisticated, though, is that correct?
Yes.
So someone with knowledge potentially of explosives. And
Correct.
Jennifer, you haven't talked too much, but have you done some research on this too, on what happened? And we'll show some photos of your dad again. We have pictures of him with your mom. How long were they married, your parents?
17 years?
Yeah,
I think it was 17 years.
Yeah.
17
Yeah.
years.
I had
And
to
how
think
old
for
were
a
the
second.
children when this happened?
I was 14.
You were 14, Jennifer. And
I was 12.
Kevin was 12.
And I was 10.
Melissa's the youngest. You were 10. And your parents, you said there may have been some struggles, but that's in a lot of marriages.
It's in a lot of
They were
marriages.
keeping the
That's-
family intact.
That's part of this, part of this is trying to obviously bring this to some kind of justice, but the other part is that's not what defined him, was that. And they were working on things, and, he was a great husband and father.
Everyone has many layers in their lives,
Right.
right? So in Vietnam. I mean, he was one tour of duty or more than one. What do you know about his Vietnam service?
You probably know
It's unfortunately, because we were so young, we didn't have an opportunity. This was something that we missed out on. So really, what we do know is that he was part of that cycle of people that were called to duty in the U.S. Army. He did serve a term in Vietnam. As far as I know, it was one tour of duty. He did get to a level where he was working as a military police officer over there. And I can't be specific about it, only because I don't know. He did sustain an injury while he was there, and survived that. And actually, subsequent to his time in theater over there, he contracted Agent Orange as cancer. So he actually, in addition to everything else, was a cancer survivor.
He had
also.
cancer.
Yeah.
What kind of cancer, do you know?
It was Hodgkin's
Hodgkin's.
lymphoma. Yeah.
And then he survived. He had treatment
survived
for
that, yeah.
And he was still working.
Every day, never took a sick day.
Never took a sick day. So you're proud of that big work ethic there.
Oh yes.
And because of your dad, is that why you wanted to join the Suffolk County Police?
It's certainly a piece in that pie. It's in the early phases of my life, very large influence. Every kid, I think, wants to grow up to be like their dad, and my dad was not only a police detective, he was a successful and well known to be a successful one. In his absence later, we were coached, guided by the people that he worked with. So I was constantly, growing up, as my two sisters were, surrounded by the people from his team in narcotics. So those are the people that were there at our high school graduations. They taught us how to drive. They were there for our weddings.
And I saw your parents wearing the Superman costume,
Yes.
so they seemed like they were fun-loving.
Yes.
And your father had paint on his face one Halloween.
Oh, yes.
It seems like there
I
was
don't think
joy
that
in
was
the
even
family.
Halloween.
I think it was
Yeah, I
Thanksgiving.
don't
I
even
think that was
Halloween.
just a random
He was just letting
morning
us-
where he let us paint his face.
Yeah.
So, he
Yeah.
indulged your whims,
Yes.
right?
exactly.
So you were very young when this happened, but now, you're adults. You want to see the investigation move forward. The latest headline that came out the day before the anniversary, the 30th anniversary, was that the current Suffolk County Police Commissioner has asked the FBI to be involved.
Right.
Do you have any sense that the FBI was involved all along, or do you think it just sort of went by the wayside?
I think they may have some involvement initially. I think when the car was initially looked over and things like that, it was tested by both, I think, the ATF and the FBI. And then we're not really sure what sort of happened in between then and now.
Well, it's 30 years happened.
Right.
Right, but we didn't have a contact with them. So now that they're back involved again, we're hoping that will shed a lot of light, because they have the ability to carry on with more things than the local police department. They have bigger tools in their toolbox. They have more people, more
More authority.
more authorities,
So-
and neutral eyes. So
So I told you we have viewers. We have quite a few viewers watching, and we're going to be careful here, but I'm going to read this question. Kiki Jacino, why aren't they naming the possible suspect, the Nassau County police officer? Could anybody be able to help more if this was known? Many may have more information if they get the name. We know the name, and I think we're advising people to Google if they want to find out the name.
sure,
Right.
Google
It's
Dennis
out there.
Wustenhoff, right?
Absolutely.
It's out there, but now that it's 30 years without an arrest, it could be a problem if we say the name out loud.
Right.
But in your heart, do you feel that it could have been an angry drug dealer, or do you feel it was this other officer from Nassau County?
I mean, in the beginning, it could be anything, but then it just kind of all
makes sense.
makes sense, and the puzzle pieces kind of fit. And when the person doesn't want to cooperate or talk
Or reach out to
or
us
reach
somehow.
out, we're not looking
Reach
for
out and say, "I didn't do it."
to be best friends, but
Now,
hey, I didn't do this.
Right.
the information was that your dad was involved with this officer's wife,
Right.
and that she worked in the DEA Long Island office, Drug
Correct.
Enforcement
Correct.
Administration. I had read a story that this officer from Nassau County actually went out and complained to some authorities about this love triangle, and that supposedly it had ended, but maybe it didn't really end. So you heard all the same things, I'm
Correct.
assuming?
We have heard all of those things.
Right.
But whether they're true or not true, or, we've confirmed that we're aware there's been an affair, that is still, in our minds for sure, not a reason to kill our father,
Car bomb.
particularly in the manner. And this person wanted him to suffer, wanted him to have the message, wanted him to know, I got you. And it's very painful to think of that.
Yeah, I'm going to show the photos again. You mentioned that you went to the hospital,
Right.
and your dad didn't die instantly. He
Right.
did suffer. Did you see him in the hospital room?
We did not, and a lot of people ask if that's something that we regret, and I do not regret that at all, because I got to see him that morning, and the last thing he told me that morning was, learn something today. That's not what I thought I would learn, but I did learn something.
What did you learn?
I learned that there's bad in the world, unfortunately. And my whole entire life was turned upside down. And that person, yeah, he wanted him to suffer, but in the end, we're the ones that suffer. And we're here talking, and we carry this pain on our backs for 30 years. And it's too long, and it's enough.
For a 10-year-old girl, how do you process that? What do you remember about trying to process that pain that day?
Total confusion, just sadness, crying, nonstop. I mean, how does somebody take your daddy away? They killed him on purpose in front of
your
my house. A lot of people ask this question. It's all about who did it. At this point, it's not about who did it anymore. It's about how do we get this solved at this point? Why is this not solved?
Do you think there could have been DNA that would have helped? Do you think there's not a will to solve it? Or are you comforted now that the FBI is involved? I mean, you consider that if this prime suspect is an officer, is he being protected? Do you have any thoughts on that, Kevin or Jennifer?
I can maybe help with that. We have had those thoughts because it almost seems obvious. With all things pointing in a certain direction, if they were civilians, the outcome would be much different, I'm sure. Because this isn't a drive-by shooting. You can't figure out who it was because they're long gone. This is a well thought out, planned. Our entire family must have been surveilled for God knows how long.
And this person knew that your mom was working and the
Right,
children
that
were at school.
we weren't gonna be home.
He knew the schedule of your dad.
Schedules,
So,
everything.
if they were just civilians, I think this would have been closed, day 5.
You think it would have been solved?
Absolutely.
Do you think that this suspect has friends in high places, this officer?
Absolutely.
Have you done any of your own private investigating or hired someone to try to find out his connections?
We are aware of his connections.
How high do they go?
Pretty high. And
Now, this officer, is he still with his wife, the one that was involved with your father?
to our knowledge, yes.
Did you ever try to confront this officer or anyone in his family?
No.
I never did.
No, because it's not the right thing to do. We want to do everything right. And
And you being a police officer yourself in Suffolk County, you have to do everything right.
I'll make a general statement with that, and it goes back to my father at the roots of the type of police officer he was. He was a huge believer in the justice system, and that's where we are at this point. I think when it comes down to it, people use that word closure, justice. It's hand in hand with one another. And when asked a few times, especially over this last week with the 30th anniversary, I think if I had to make a choice between answering for this crime in this life or the next, I'd rather answer for it in this life than the next, that is for sure. And I think that's the best way to answer that question. We are one cohesive unit believing in that same justice system.
And I see this graphic that you have, and you talk about the 3 hours. You don't talk about it being an instant. You talk about the 3 hours, and there's a reason for that. And you had started to address that before.
Right.
The 3 hours that your dad suffered in the hospital before he died.
Right. He, like you mentioned, he knew he was dying, and I know you asked, were we told? We didn't have to be told, because I guess at the point when he had passed, they came and we were in hiding. We weren't just like in an emergency room. We were, hidden in some office someplace, and they took my mother out of the room to tell her, and we just heard this horrific scream, and basically at that point we just knew. Nobody had to tell us. We just knew. She fainted, and we just knew that was it.
And your mother is very supportive of your work now.
Very
even though it may have
supportive.
been hurtful what happened in the relationship.
Right.
She is supportive, and she wants justice for her husband, who is also the
Right.
father of her 3 children.
Right, and my sister mentioned that earlier today with some people, that, she always told us the truth from the beginning. She always supported us. She never talked bad about my father.
Never, not once.
She will always have his back. She'll always have our back, and honestly, we wouldn't be here without her.
Yeah, agreed.
Strong family.
She's
Very
truly
strong.
I don't know if the term is unsung hero. She is the absolute rock and foundation of our stability, and has been for the last 30 years. When they use that word matriarch, it should really have a picture of Fran next to
Yeah.
it, because she honestly, even to this day, I'm 42 years old, and if I have something I need to get through, I still
We call mommy.
Yeah, we still
Mommy.
call mom.
Yeah.
And look at the 3 fine children that she raised. And I can't thank you enough for coming in this evening, and we're hoping that this will be shared many times on Facebook.
Yes,
And
please
you have
share.
your own page. Tell us the name of your page.
The page is called Justice for Dennis J. Wustenhoff, and you can join the group and you can follow. And we hope you do. We hope you share it. We just need to get this out there. 1, because it needs to be solved, and 2, just because it's an issue when a murder is not solved by a murder of a police officer. How does that happen?
Yes, you want to say
I just
something?
wanted to add one more thing.
Yes, Jen.
It's also important for us to put out there that while the bottom line is we want it solved, we also want people to realize, to us it's so important for people to realize that my father is the person who he was when he was living, not define him for why he died or how he died. As awful as the why and the how, he was so much more.
Let's show some
alive.
photos, Eliza. There he is again, your dad.
And it's a shame that we've had to defend that for him when he was just good.
You
But I
shouldn't
just-
have to defend him because of all the work he did and the
Right.
father that he was to you, and the
Right.
strong
Right,
member of
because
the
he-
family that
Yeah,
he was.
Yes, he
And
was-
his service to his nation.
I mean, that's all he did was for other people. Everything.
A constant dedication to his family, a constant mentorship to young people in the neighborhood, a constant loyalty to his coworkers, and a groundbreaker in at that time, undercover narcotics investigations, and
And that
brought
was his
that
undercover
forward.
car where this happened, right? It was an
Right.
Correct.
Eldorado.
Yes,
Right.
Cadillac Eldorado.
A Cadillac Eldorado. And just Melissa, as we wrap up, if you could say something to the person that you believe did this, what would you say now? As you look for an answer after
Wow.
30 years.
The walls are closing in, and it's only a matter of time. And you can't break this family.
Right. And, it's not fair what they did to us. It's not
When you say they, what do you mean by
this
they?
person or persons. It's
You
not,
think maybe more than one was involved in the conspiracy, you don't know.
but
you're
it's
hoping
not
DNA
fair.
or
It's
some
not
new-
fair.
You're hoping a witness comes forward.
Something will come forward.
We're hoping the power of Facebook and Facebook, the FBI, Suffolk County Police, you're hoping that the the phones will start going.
Yeah.
and,
we
and
know
the
they will.
messages start
Yeah.
coming in on
Yeah.
the
We are
inboxes.
very
It's
positive.
already been happening, so
We're
this is
close.
Gonna,
It's
yeah.
gonna. It's just a matter
And
of
we
time at this
appreciate you
point.
having us. And
Well, I
Thank you.
appreciate you
Thank you
coming
for all
into
the people
Manhattan
watching,
from
too.
Suffolk County.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank
and thanks
you.
for sharing
Thanks,
your
Mary.
story.
Thank you.
I
Thank you,
know it's
Mary.
not easy, but